Everybody says, oh, your sugar's high, that's bad. That's not the case. In fact, it was a big mystery for a long time. The scientists were saying, what the heck? It doesn't make any sense. This person has normal blood sugar and they already have kidney disease and they already have Alzheimer's disease. They already have neuropathy. Their feet are tingling and their blood sugar is normal. What the heck? Why is that happening? The problem is insulin. Insulin is the problem.
Here we go. All right. We'll give people a minute to hop on here. People might see Leslie's not here and quickly hop off.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah.
Like, the star of the show is not there. Forget it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. She kind of keeps us in line a little bit. Yeah. All right. Well, we do have people hopping on. Hello, everybody. The Fixed Blood Sugar webinar with Dr. Scott Saunders and yours truly, Joe Barton. How we doing? We're going to have a good webinar today. Hopefully we've got a mix of new people and people that have joined us in the past. We have a pretty good mix each week usually. And we'll get anywhere from 80 to 100 people that are on here. And we go through the basics of this right here, the Diabetes Solution Kit. And this talks about mostly type 2 diabetes, how to implement changes so your body can put it into remission so you don't have to worry about it as much. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Dr. Saunders, as much as I hate this part, the disclaimer, but why don't you just do a little disclaimer and then let's get into the basics of type 2. What are some of the most common questions that people want to know about type 2?
Yeah, okay. So the information that we provide here is for general audience use, right? It's for, it will apply to a lot of people, but remember, no two people are exactly alike. So in order for you to apply that information properly, it's very important that you look at it and say, and ask the question, does this apply to me? And sometimes you may need professional help for that. So that's my advice to you, is to look at this information as general and not specific for you specifically. In other words, I'm not taking responsibility. I'm not your doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to talk about today with type 2 is insulin resistance. We haven't really gone into the depth with insulin resistance and why that's important, because it is important that insulin resistance is the cause of all the problems of type 2. So let's go basics again. Type 1 diabetes is when the pancreas quits producing insulin. So if your pancreas is not producing insulin, then your cells, the sugar can't get into the cells, they're blocked. And the insulin, there's no key. The insulin's the key to open the door to let the sugar in. But there's no key to open the door. So all the sugar's waiting outside to get in the cell. And the cell's going, hey, I need sugar. But there's no way to open the door to allow that to happen. So that's type 1. And so the blood sugar is going up and up and up, but the cells are dying of starvation. They're shrinking down. So people with type 1 diabetes literally die of starvation. They don't have enough. They can't get their amino acids and sugars into their cells to be able to grow. They can't make fat. They can't make proteins. It's really a bad disease, and people used to call it consumption. And you can imagine why they would call it consumption, because they're literally being consumed by this disease, right? They're shrinking down and dying. So that's type 1. Now, if we look at type 2, we have an entirely different situation here. We have too much, right? And when there's too much insulin, there's too much sugar, too much protein, too much fat, and all of that causes problems with getting the sugar into the cells. Why? For the opposite reason. The cells are so overloaded with sugar that they go, whoa, stop, and they actually block the sugar from coming in. So they don't allow sugar. They shut off the insulin receptors. So now you have all this insulin around and a bunch of sugar around. The sugar's going up and up, but the problem is not the sugar going up. Everybody says, oh, your sugar's high, that's bad. That's not the case. In fact, it was a big mystery for a long time. The scientists were saying, what the heck? It doesn't make any sense. This person has normal blood sugar and they already have kidney disease and they already have Alzheimer's disease. They already have neuropathy. And their feet are tingling and their blood sugar is normal. What the heck? Why is that happening? The problem is insulin. Insulin is the problem. So all of these complications that you're told that, oh, you got to keep your blood sugar down to prevent you from getting complications of diabetes. And they say, oh, you're going to end up on dialysis or you're going to have amputations of your feet. What they're not telling you is that the problem is insulin resistance, and it has only a little to do with the blood sugar, and you could keep your blood sugar perfectly normal and still get all the complications. In fact, there are plenty of studies to prove that. The largest was called the UKPDS study, United Kingdom for Diabetes Study. Something diabetes, I don't know what the P is for. In that study, they compared people who were diet controlled versus people who were controlled on drugs, including insulin. So the people that had no drugs, they had higher blood sugar, they had higher cholesterol, they had higher blood pressure, right? So all the markers, the things that your doctor says, these are bad and these are going to destroy you and they're going to make you have strokes and have all these problems. But the people who were taking the drugs and had high and were getting insulin, they had more amputations, more dialysis, more heart attacks, and more Alzheimer's, more dementia. So you're like, what? Tell me that again? Is that real? Yes, that's real. It's not just this study. This is the largest study, but there are a lot of other studies that show that those who are taking drugs have lower sugars and lower cholesterol. All their numbers look really good, but they have more complications. Why? Well, because they're not looking at the one important thing, insulin resistance. You need to know your insulin level. If you don't know your insulin level, then you don't know how much insulin resistance you have. They have actually, most labs now have an insulin resistance index. And it's not a one-to-one. I don't even know how they figure it. But that index it is a good way to look at how much insulin resistance you have. So they take your blood sugar and your insulin level and your hemoglobin A1C, and they have a numerical calculation that says this is the index of your insulin resistance, and the lower the better. And there's no like too low in that case. It's like the lower the better, and because insulin resistance is the problem. And blood sugar is not the problem. Yeah, your blood sugar goes up when you have insulin resistance, but it's still not a good marker, because you can have insulin resistance for years before you actually have high blood sugar, right? Because your cells don't always work exactly at the same time. So it's not like the cells are talking to each other and saying, well, I'm going to shut off the insulin receptors. Oh, I'll do that too. Oh, me too, me too. And so everybody shuts off the insulin receptors at the same time. That's not the way it works. So this cell's full of sugar and it shuts off 90% of its insulin receptors. The one next door shuts off only 70%. And the next one, the other one down the street only shuts off 50%. And one down the street only 20%. So you have all this variability going on all the time. Of insulin resistance. So you can get the sugar into at least some of the cells some of the time, and you can have normal blood sugar, and then other cells in your body can have enough insulin resistance. So that's what you need to know is insulin resistance. You don't need to know blood sugar really. It's kind of like using your weight to determine how healthy you are. Yeah, okay, it's an okay measurement. And some people say, well, I have diabetes because I'm obese. No, there are a whole lot of people who are overweight who do not have diabetes. There's much more going on than that. But we use weight as a marker just because it's easy. You can step on a scale and get the number easily. Well, same thing with blood sugar. It takes a bit to get an insulin level, but with the little finger stick, you can know your blood sugar right away, right? So that's why we use blood sugar as a surrogate measurement for insulin resistance, but it's not a good one. It's not a good one. You need to know what your insulin is. So even if you don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes, or you have family members that might have diabetes, look for the insulin resistance. That's a more important marker than blood sugar.
That's really good stuff. So I think I've seen this somewhere typically people with insulin resistance also have belly fat. Is that true? Is that a strong correlation?
Yes, actually, that is kind of, if someone has a lot of belly fat and they have normal blood sugar, look at the insulin resistance because why? Because insulin is the hormone that tells your body to put on fat. It's the only one, because without insulin, you can't put on fat. You just waste all that fat. So, but one interesting thing is insulin will make you put on belly fat. And so I was in Venezuela for a couple of years. And while I was there, by the time a man was in his 30s, he couldn't button his shirt. So his shirt was, just his belly was so big that his shirt wouldn't button. So they would all have their belly button hanging out and the shirt open. They would be buttoned down to their lower ribs, and then it would be unbuttoned so that their belly can stick out of their shirt because they were drinking beer all the time. Well, what does the beer have to do with it? Well, alcohol causes the release of insulin, acts as a carbohydrate. Plus, there's a lot of other carbohydrates in beer, and that's what they use is carb starch, right? It's in beer. And they would drink they would drink a lot of beer, but it's the consistency, like all day long. So that every time they take some drink, insulin goes up. And then before it can come down again, they take another drink and insulin goes up. And then they take another drink and insulin goes up. And so all day long, even though they drink, I don't know, 1 6-pack a day, but they're drinking it, sipping it all day long. And so their insulin is up. That this constant high insulin level is causing them to put on belly fat. But they're not eating all day long, so they don't really have a lot of carbs. Sorry. So they don't have a lot of calories to make them all fat all over. So they just get this big belly. It's really funny.
Yeah. So a little housekeeping here. We are going to get to questions at the end of our second half of our webinar today. And we have the Q&A section available on Zoom. And it looks like the chat maybe is not working. I think people need to update their Zoom software. I did that a week or two ago, and that helped work for me. So I'm not sure if people can see. I put a message in the chat there. But the Q&A is still working. So if you do have questions, go ahead and put them in there and we'll get to them at the end here. Also, if you're watching this recording on YouTube, head on over to bartonwebinar.com and check us out. You can register to join us live next week on every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time is when we do these. So this hour is mostly for our customers to help them on their journey, supporting the mission. And so speaking of the mission of reversing type 2 or putting type 2 into remission, I personally get frustrated as a business owner trying to help people with diabetes, because I know that what we teach and what you talk about every week on these webinars, it works. Like, it actually helps people go from diabetic to non-diabetic. And we get testimonials every day, all the time, people on this call that have shared their stories with us. But what I get frustrated about is that the governmental agencies like the FTC, FDA, and a few other places, which then affect Facebook and Google. Yeah. Yeah, like Facebook, Google, all the big platforms. Well, they are afraid of allowing us to say anything of the sort. Like we can barely even hint at the fact that type 2 is reversible with diet and lifestyle change, and they want none of it. And the conspiracy theorist in me thinks it's because there's a connection with pharmaceutical companies who want you to take a drug for that. But most people don't want drugs because of the side effects. And if you can do this without drugs, why wouldn't you want to? So I don't know. Is there more to it than that? Like, is there any reason that I can't think of on why we're not allowed to say this very publicly on our advertisements? We still do it sometimes. We get away with it sometimes, but like if we have compliance reviews, like, yeah, they're saying, you shouldn't say that. It's like, well, I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm putting my neck on the chopping block, apparently. So hopefully God protects us and we don't have any issues like that. But if there's anyone from the FTC or FDA watching this, just leave. Bye-bye. See you later. You don't need to worry about us. We're not doing any harm here. I don't know.
Nothing to see here. Move along.
Yeah, that's right. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see. But is there more to it than that? Or is it like a legit, like the medical industry? You're a doctor. You're a good one, though.
Well, it's the same thing. The licensing authority, medical boards, put doctors' licenses on probation all the time and remove doctors' licenses for taking people off of drugs, for using vitamins, for using natural means, for not being a medical doctor, not doing the standard of care. The standard of care is insulin for everyone. But when somebody learns the truth of insulin resistance is the problem, more insulin just makes it worse. So doing the standard of care is making everybody worse and causing more amputations and more dialysis, which is good for business, right? Because then you've got more fingers in this business and you don't heal anyone. So doctors who want to heal are often told they can't do that. Don't be doing those things. And I've had my license put on probation for that. It's a common problem.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's one of those things that you have to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, I guess, as Jesus said. But anyway, we're here. If you made it this far, you're learning all you need to know to reverse type 2. So we love to hear testimonies of people that have done it, and we like to share those. We like to, Leslie is usually on here with us, our co-host, and she we'll often get on private Zoom calls with people so that they can share their story, and then we'll put those on our YouTube channel to share. So if you want to see our other videos, go to bartonwebinar.com, which then links to our YouTube page, or just go to YouTube and search Barton Webinar, and you can see various video testimonials. And then I think we're on episode 152 of these webinars now that we've done every week, which is fantastic. So much great information for people. So if you found us, congratulations. There is hope, and you can feel your best. And we love to hear from you guys. So let me give you a couple more minutes to wrap up anything else you wanted to say about insulin, but then I could get into reading some of the questions that have come in.
Okay. So the reason insulin is a problem is because when you have high insulin over time, you decrease the receptors' sensitivity to insulin, but you decrease the number of receptors too. So, for example, there are receptors that allow sugar to get into the brain, and you diminish the number of those, and you're getting less sugar into the brain, and the blood sugar's high, but the brain doesn't have enough, and so the brain is literally starving in a sea of sugar. So the brain is starving, and that's the number one cause of what we call Alzheimer's disease, or the number one cause of dementia in the United States, is due to a lack of sugar getting into the brain from type 2 diabetes or insulin resistance. It's not about the high blood sugar. It's really about the insulin level. Same thing with the kidneys on dialysis, same thing with the nervous system. And same thing with the heart. The heart's not getting enough energy. So what happens? You get arrhythmias of the heart. You get atrial fibrillation is very common. And you can have that. You can have atrial fibrillation of your heart from a lack of energy getting into the heart, just from insulin resistance, and have perfectly normal blood sugar. So you don't technically have diabetes, and yet your heart isn't getting enough energy, so you're getting arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation. So the problem is the insulin, and that's why that happens.
Excellent. All right. Well, we had a good question from Joyce that came in. My question has to do with phase 1. I'm on week 4, and I can't seem to get my levels under 100. I'm assuming blood sugar levels. My question has to do with the percentage of fats and proteins that we're to focus on. I know the solution kit says 50% of your calories should be from carbs, which I'm not sure that's what it says. So what is the breakdown of the other 50% of protein and healthy fats? Pretty sure it's not 50% carbs.
Yeah, 20 grams of carbs, and the amount of protein and fats is variable, because we tried to make it as easy as possible, so you don't have to measure how much protein and how much fats, and whether the fats are healthy fats or not. We just say, okay, the idea of phase 1 is detox, and primarily detoxing from sugar. So getting off all sugar you can and limiting your carbs to like 20 grams of carbohydrates. That's not enough to run your body on. So why is that important? Because that allows your body to start using up all those carbs that have been stored, and then start using up all the fat that's been stored. So that's the purpose of that. And 4 weeks on phase 1. And Joyce doesn't say if it's dropped at all, like if she started somewhere and now she's gotten, around 100, but doesn't get under 100. But yeah. When people have this issue of my blood sugar's not dropping down, even though I'm on the 20 grams of carbohydrates and I'm doing everything it says in the book, then one of the things to do is to lower the fats, because fats can make you more insulin resistant. So, and that's been proven in multiple studies. So if you lower the fats as much as possible and add fiber. So things that don't have any fat, like broccoli. Broccoli's hardly any fat at all, and lettuce and spinach and kale and cabbage. And so you change your diet to take out extra fats that you're eating and avoid things like meat and, you know, the bacon, sausage, cheese omelet with sour cream on it is probably not going to be healthy for someone like that, because that'll make you more insulin resistant.
So leaner meats would be okay, but not the super high fat meats.
So lean meats, and then all those free foods, all the fiber, adding more fiber is a good idea.
Yeah. So Joyce, if you did see something in our solution kit that said 50% of your calories should be from carbs, I would love for you to tell me what page that's on, because I don't think we teach that in there. Phase 1 is all about the 20 grams or less of carbs. So trying to avoid confusion there, but yeah, if we do say something in there, I'd love to know about it so we can update that. All right, so Richard asks about some meds. He's just wondering, what is cholesterol and Nextol? I don't know if those are related to diabetes or not. Have you heard of those?
Yeah, well, they're not specifically for diabetes, but they're a type of fiber that holds on to cholesterol, bile acids actually, and so they're supposed to lower cholesterol, and they can be useful somewhat, but I don't recommend them because of the side effects. They can cause diarrhea. They affect the intestinal bacteria, and the intestinal bacteria are really important, and you don't want to mess with those. So I don't recommend them.
Richard, if you look in our archives, we've talked about cholesterol several different times. There should be a couple episodes that mention that in the title, so you could find that on our YouTube channel. That'll be helpful for you. All right, somebody said they just received fiber greens. How often do I take them, and what time of day is best?
Okay. How often? Well,
right here.
Yeah, once a day is generally what's recommended. Some people take it twice a day. And it's one of those things that you work with your body and say, how much do I need? So someone who's living on just a fiber diet, having just vegetables and like a vegetarian or vegan diet, and has already a lot of fiber in their diet, would only take it once a day. But if someone's living on meat and eggs and cheese, then they're going to probably want to take it 3 times a day. So it just depends. And I guess the way you would adjust it, and I've noticed that it does change the bowel movements somewhat. So if you start getting diarrhea, it's probably too much. And if you're getting constipated, then it's not enough. And so you can adjust it between. That would be the best way to do
it. Seems how we have no shame here. Dr. Saunders, what does a good poop look like? What should a good poop look like?
Okay, that's really a good question. I had a guy we put on our program, and he did great. He just did everything, and at the end, and so I was interviewing him at the end and going, okay, so how did you do, and all that, and he says, well, fine, except for the diarrhea, and I'm like, oh, well, that's a problem. So what are you doing? And we went through this, went back and forth for, I don't know, several months, and finally I asked him, okay, what do you mean by diarrhea? Because he says, I keep getting diarrhea. He says, well, I have soft stool and I have to wipe. I'm like, well, duh, doesn't everybody? He's like, no. Yeah, I used to have like really hard stool. It would come out and I never even had to wipe. It was just like, it was hard. And I'm like, oh, that's not good, because the hard stool creates hemorrhoids and diverticulosis, and it's not good. What you want is the soft stool. So actually, your description of a stool like mud, or like you'll never eat applesauce again, is okay. That's perfectly fine if it's soft like that. But people generally describe it like soft serve ice cream. I can use that because I don't want anybody on here to ever eat soft serve ice cream again anyway. So so that kind of consistency is actually really good. So that's the ideal consistency. It would be somewhere between soft serve ice cream and applesauce.
Awesome. All right. Jennifer said, hello from Frederick, Wisconsin. This is her 4th time watching this live. So fantastic. Velo, he made it. He was a little late, it looks like. The United Kingdom Prospective Diabetes Study.
Oh, that's it. Prospective. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. UKPDS. So, yeah.
Yep. So Bonnie had an insulin reading of 22. Is that high?
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. Okay. So that's the one thing I didn't discuss is what is a normal insulin? Yeah. Okay. So 22 is definitely high. So on a fasting specimen, it should be under 10, ideally right around 5. So if it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that anywhere in there is good for on a fasting insulin specimen. If it's over 10, that's definitely high. 22 is way up there. So anybody who has an insulin level of 22 has, or over 20, has insulin resistance. The way to look at this is not to say a yes or no question, do I have insulin resistance or not? It's like, how much insulin resistance do I have? And so if your blood sugar is between 70 and 90 and your insulin level is 5 or 3 or 4 or 6, you don't have insulin resistance, or you have very little insulin resistance, if any at all. Whereas if your blood sugar is 110 and your insulin level is 13, then you definitely have some insulin resistance. But if you're up to 22, that's pretty high insulin. I've had people of 100, their insulin 150. 5 is normal, 20 is high, some 150. Sometimes their pancreas just puts out a ton of insulin.
Bonnie, would you be willing to share like what your average blood sugar readings are? I'd just be curious to see that. And then Dr. Saunders, if somebody does have high insulin like that, what should they do?
Phase 1. Phase 1 is really important. And if you have that high, if it's like over 20, use something like the Synachroma, because it's likely that you have deficiencies of some of those nutrients, selenium, vanadium, chromium, vitamin D, or that are going to make you more insulin resistant or make you more likely to be insulin resistant. So it's a good idea to take a supplement also if you're that high.
Well, you brought it up. Synachroma. This is our #1 selling blood sugar support formula that Dr. Saunders formulated several years ago. It has chromium, vitamin D, vitamin K, selenium, vanadium, and cinnamon bark extract. And Dr. Saunders, you've talked about this quite a bit, but the reason this does so well, 1, it works, but 2, like you've done thousands of tests with people, and the way you formulated it was putting in the ingredients in with these minerals and vitamins that most people with type 2 or without it just generally are deficient in. So really what this does is help get those levels so they're not deficient anymore. Anything else you'd say about that?
Yeah, so we started out this webinar today with insulin resistance. And if you have like a chromium deficiency, you can become insulin resistant with a perfectly normal diet or a good diet. And how did that happen? I eat a perfect diet. You know, I'm vegan. I don't eat sugar and I don't eat processed foods. And I've had people tell me stuff like that. So it's important to have these, and they're common deficiencies.
Yeah. You know, another thing that we talk about, I'll just throw out there since this is kind of the type 2 basics that we talk about, but stress reduction is a huge thing too. Like if you're hitting plateaus, I just heard a story from a guy. He's got a YouTube channel and he's very interesting. I wouldn't necessarily recommend him because he swears a lot and he's a little out there, but he was talking about how he moved from Chicago to San Diego and he didn't change his diet at all. And he ended up losing like 4% body fat and 13 pounds or whatever. And the only thing he could figure out is because he moved and his environment around him was just way less stressful. Like, and imagine like the winters of Chicago are similar to where I'm at in South Dakota. Like, yeah, they're not necessarily fun and just different things like that. But so the point of that is like looking at your life and seeing and asking like, okay, what is causing me stress? What is making me anxious or worrying or different things like that? And then think about different situations that you can maybe change in your life. And Dr. Saunders, you've talked about the story of a woman who had her daughter living with her, or maybe lived with her daughter. And then once she moved out, like so much stress relief happened and she was way healthier and things like that.
No, she went from having diabetes, uncontrollable diabetes, to not having diabetes. It was just the most remarkable thing.
Yeah.
Just with that, in one day, she went from diabetes, no diabetes in one day.
Wow. So would you say like chemically, like that was the cortisol levels? Like,
yeah. Cortisol, adrenaline, epinephrine, or epinephrine and norepinephrine. Yeah.
So your body creates these stress hormones that like elevate your blood sugar and your insulin resistance, right?
Yeah.
So that's just another thing in the toolbox to have. So again, the 20 grams of carbs is phase 1, but also reduce your stress. It really is getting outside and exercising more, moving more. That's a big part of it. Sunshine.
Awesome.
Sleep is a huge part of it. 6-10 reset, which is stop eating at 6 o'clock at night and go to bed on an empty stomach at 10 p.m. so that your body can sleep its best, but also get into that anabolic state of repair that your body goes into and maximizes human growth hormone production. Like if you do all those things, you're going to increase your chances of success in overcoming these things. And so that's all in the diabetes solution kit. You'll hear that from us in these webinars. Highly recommend you go back and watch more of these webinars, continue to educate yourself, be surrounded by good information and good people here. So we also have a Facebook community that you can join. Find us on Barton Publishing or Barton Webinar there. So, all right, let's get to another question here. Anonymous attendee. I am no longer on metformin since joining the program a year ago last year because the reversal program did the job of reducing weight by 50 pounds, A1C, changing my eating habits, and still maintaining my weight. First time with any diet I ever did. Question now is in regard to ED and wondering if longtime use of metformin for 12 years was and still continues to contribute to the ED. Will your men's supplement, which is Niagara XL, will your men's supplement give any help to turn this around and also with prostate difficulties?
Okay. That is a great question, and I'm wondering how to answer that in a more general sense to give an idea. So ED is erectile dysfunction, and erectile dysfunction happens when the blood vessels are not working properly. So metformin has been associated with that, But really the problem is insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, then the cells don't get sugar into them properly or well, and don't get amino acids into them well. So your blood vessels stop working very well, which is what happens, what causes the neuropathy in the first place, and what causes like the numbness in your feet and the poor circulation and all of that. So the problem is insulin resistance causing poor circulation. And so if you have poor circulation, then you can't get an erection. That's the problem there. And so it's not the metformin. So the answer to that question is really it's not the metformin. The association with metformin is more because of its metformin is used for insulin resistance. And so they thought it was blood sugar, but then they thought, well, maybe it's the metformin because the blood sugar isn't directly related. But really, it's the insulin resistance and the dysfunction of the blood vessels. So the answer, then your next question is, well, what about the supplement? If I take the supplement, and the supplement has herbs in it and vitamins and amino acids that are there to raise the testosterone levels. Now, here's a very interesting thing that I'm going to share with you that most people don't know. Testosterone has very little to do with erectile dysfunction. In fact, when they did a study on men with erectile dysfunction and low testosterone, then half of them got shots of peanut oil, and the other half got shots of testosterone. And then they switched them. Only 15% of men, 15% of men could tell the difference when they were on the testosterone and when they were not on the testosterone. In other words, 85% of the time, they couldn't tell. The testosterone didn't make a difference. So why is that important? Well, because we attach a lot of importance to the testosterone. Oh my gosh, you got to have testosterone. That's really important. But we forget about what's really important. Why ED happens is because of blood vessels. And so getting the blood vessels to work. So will the men's supplement help? Well, maybe if you have low testosterone, okay, 15%, it might help. So that's a possibility. The Niagara XL might be helpful. But if you have ED with diabetes, then it's more likely a blood vessel problem, in which case taking the benfotiamine and alpha lipoic acid that's in the Nervala would be a better choice. And the reason we call it Nervala is just because it's made for neuropathy, to improve the nerve function. But actually, mostly what it does is help blood vessels function so that the nerves come back to normal. Well, guess what? If your nerves come back to normal, then your ED will come back too, for the same reason, if you get the blood vessels working. So number one, make sure your blood sugar is normal. Make sure you don't have insulin resistance. So you've got to get your insulin resistance down to as close to zero as possible. And that's the most important thing for ED. And then the second most important thing is get the circulation right. So you could take Nervala and Niagara XL.
Fantastic. Speaking of our supplements, bartonnutrition.com is where you can see a list of all of them. And we do have a coupon code for people watching the webinar. It is webinar25, and you can save 25% off everything that you purchase from bartonnutrition.com. That's a pretty good deal. Okay. Let's see, we've got some time here. So Brian Voiles, if this is the same Brian Voiles that I know, hello, my friend. I was trying to chat you earlier and I don't think our chat is working, but great to see you. Question here, what is the best way to get an insulin resistance test? Is that something just ask the doctor?
Yeah, ask your doctor for insulin resistance test. Yeah, and the lab does it. The doctor may not know what it is, but most labs do it now.
How much does exercise improve insulin resistance?
Oh, okay. So think about this. Excellent question. Think about this. Your cells are full of sugar and they have all this glycogen. Muscle cells store glycogen in them. And once they're full up, that's where the insulin resistance comes in. And then you eat fat, and fat blocks the insulin receptors. So now you've got double the insulin resistance. So what does exercise do? Well, it does two really important things. One is it starts using up all that glycogen that it's stored. Glycogen is sugar. So all the stored sugar in the muscle cell starts getting used up. And then the second thing it does is it allows fat to get into the muscle cells. So now you can burn fat. So exercise is really, really good. It's better than insulin.
Wow.
By far.
Yeah.
Far. Really good.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. So Velo and Barbie, they said, we've been blessed by this program. We are actually excited to visit our doctors as enough time has now passed where our numbers and weight have come down more than anything we've ever tried. The insulin level question is one of the items on our list to ask our doctor. Awesome. And Joyce said on page 25 in our solution kit, I can see where the confusion came from, and I think I'm going to have that edited for our next edition here. It says, as a person with diabetes or pre-diabetes, you should be on a 1,600 to 1,800 calorie diet. Are you? A diabetic on a 1,600 calorie diet should get 50% of their calories from carbohydrates, which totals approximately 800 calories from carbohydrates per day. Next paragraph, though, it says, prepare yourself. In phase 1, in order to jumpstart your diabetes reversal, you will be cutting the number of carbohydrates to just 20 grams of carbs. So I think what we were talking about in that first paragraph was that after you get your diabetes under control, then your normal typical calorie intake would be 1,600 to 1,800. But I think that's something we should tweak a bit and phrase better. What do you think, Dr. Saunders?
I agree. That could be more clear.
Yeah, we'll clarify that. So thanks for pointing that out, Joyce. All right, let's see here. When you're taking fiber, do you that has both dietary and so insoluble and soluble fiber, do you deduct both of those from your carb count? If you're looking at the label. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Take them both off. Soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Take them. Yeah. Subtract that.
Because it counts as a carb, but then it's fiber, so you basically it doesn't affect the actual carbs or whatever. So it's the net.
Okay, Joe, you froze.
Uh-oh. I froze.
Yeah.
You froze.
Okay.
Am I back?
I can't hear you, Joe. You froze.
Uh-oh. Testing 1, 2. Hey, could someone else?
Okay.
Can you hear us? Someone put in the Q&A if you can hear me.
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Saunders. Okay. Good deal. I have been having internet issues.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Somebody had a question about magnesium spray on the skin. So this is our Easy Relief Magnesium. Should one apply to the entire skin every day? Magnesium is supposed to be good for skin problems, itching, scratching. Does magnesium help with the skin problems? Why do we have this, Dr. Saunders?
Okay, so magnesium supplements, pills, you can get anywhere. There's all kinds. There's not one better than another. But some people have problems with taking oral magnesium. They get diarrhea. And so we wanted an easy way to be able to get magnesium because it's a common deficiency without having to go through the intestinal system. So in my office, I used to give intravenous magnesium all the time. I commonly would give people a whole gram of magnesium in their veins. And sometimes it would relieve a migraine headache. It stops a heart attack just like that. IV magnesium is amazing, and they should have it in every ER, but they don't because of drugs, darn it. So anyway, so we decided on a spray, well, partly because Joe found out about it and he asked about it. So I'm like, yeah, that's actually a good choice, because you can't overdose on it. If you put it all over your body every day, then you're going to absorb a certain percentage of that. You don't absorb all of it, you absorb a percentage of it. And you may get a little bit more than if you put it on only a small area of your body. So yes, you could bathe in. People take a bath in Epsom salts, for example. And the reason Epsom salts became famous was because people would go to Epsom, France, and they would bathe in this spring, actually is what it was, that had a lot of magnesium sulfate in it, and they would get better, and their muscle cramps would go away, and they would feel better, and their energy would come back. Why? Because if you're low in magnesium, you don't make energy. There's 300 different enzymes that require magnesium to function. And so their body started functioning. So it was miraculous. So everybody said, this miraculous water. And so they take the salts, Epsom salts, and they put them in their bathtub and they soak in it. Their whole body's soaking in this Epsom salts. Yes, that's, essentially you can spray it all over every day and be good with it.
Yeah. All right. Follow up from Bonnie. She had the 22, I believe, insulin number. And so she said, I've been following your program for 2 years. I take Synachroma every day. My levels were hitting 98 several times a week. And then I started adding food and they went back up to 105. And now they're going higher to 115. So I can eat the same thing 2 days in a row. One day it'll be low and the next day the same food and it'll be over 100. I exercise every day and I quit eating by 6 to go to bed by 10. So sounds like she's doing everything right.
Good work, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Okay. So and you know what? That's a good question of why. There are a whole bunch of factors involved in why. Why does it go up after you eat with certain meals? And eating the same thing one day will bump it up to 98, and another day you'll go up to 120. There's a lot of factors involved in that. How much stress you have, what else you've eaten, whether there's anything else in your stomach, or whether your sugar level is dropping down and your insulin's low, so you release glucagon, and glucagon says make more sugar, and the liver makes more sugar, so then you're up higher than you expected. There's so I can't know all of the factors that cause that. But if you're getting the blood sugar is getting elevated in the 120s or whatever, then there's still some insulin resistance. It might be a good idea to check your insulin levels and see where that is, because if you have really low insulin, like 2 or 1, you do a C-peptide level and it's less than 1, then your pancreas might not be making enough insulin, and then your blood sugar is going to go up and you're going to have those issues. So if you're finding that, it would be a good idea to know what your insulin is, because your insulin.
Yeah, I think she was at 22, I believe. This was the follow-up.
Oh, she was at 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that means she's still pretty insulin resistant. Yeah. So staying on phase 1 and keeping your blood sugar below 100, and in other words, not adding the foods in would be a good idea.
Something else you've talked about in the past was how the taste of sweet, even from stevia or anything, really can cause insulin problems as well. So maybe last
week I had somebody insulin resistant. He says, "No way. I have a perfect diet." And it turns out he chews gum. So all day long he's chewing gum. That taste of sweet causes him to release insulin all day long. He has insulin resistance. Doesn't have diabetes, has insulin resistance just from chewing gum.
And the gum doesn't even have calories typically. Yep. I mean, it's like Hubba Bubba or something, but nobody
sugar-free gum. No, sugar-free gum.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, keep up the good work, Bonnie. Anku has a great question follow-up here. So After successful phase 1, can one increase the carbs from 20 grams to 30 grams to 50 grams and to 100 grams? What is the best or ideal daily carb intake to avoid resurgence of high blood sugar?
Wow. Well, that's why we have phase 2 as an individual thing. It's not something that we have a recommendation for everybody to do this many. We do the 20-gram thing because we know that that is not enough to run your body on every day. In other words, you're going to have to use up. So that's a detox program. That's a different issue. Once you're into phase 2, then you've detoxed, your insulin resistance is gone, and you're now normal. So you're going to start adding foods in, and you're going to start looking at how do these foods affect blood sugar. And so, but that has to kind of be done on an individual basis. So there isn't an ideal amount of carbs for some people. In fact, I've recommended a very high carbohydrate diet with low fat for some people, just because they don't tolerate fats. I've had people like the woman earlier that was saying that she adds in some food and her blood sugar starts going up again. Sometimes that's because of fat. So you can eat a just fruit and vegetable diet and avoid all fats. You wouldn't have any, butter fat or coconut oil, or you can't even have an avocado on some of those diets. And because they have too much fat in them, because fat makes you insulin resistant, right? And that the problem is insulin resistance. So sometimes you'll have a very high carbohydrate diet and be eating just carbs and no fat. And that works too.
Great. Lars, you had a question about taking products into Norway and wanting to see the product labels. So if you go to bartonnutrition.com and click on to each of those products that you're interested about, Synachroma and Nervala, there should be a supplement facts label on the bottle, on the page. It lists all the ingredients and all the everything in that. So then you should be able to use that for that, hopefully. All right, we've got a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them because we only have a few minutes left. We had another question about berberine. We've talked about that in the past, so I'm not going to get to that one today. Detox. So people have asked, like, what is the detox procedure? You kind of just went through that right now, and it's really just like anything more you want to say about detoxing or?
Detoxing is really an empty stomach. So as long as you keep your stomach empty, you're detoxing. The longer you keep your stomach empty, the better off you can be.
All right. Here's a good question. So somebody that's been fasting, they've had gas and then also a feeling weak, low energy. How can someone help? How can they avoid the gas and increase energy while fasting?
Okay, so the gas comes from bacteria that are fermenting things that are left over, and you just got to wait for that. That'll go away. And then the energy part, I've looked at many ways of doing this. I've had people try, eating nuts like almonds or having some baby carrots or something to munch on if their energy goes down. And so if you have to do something, if you're like, my brain doesn't function, I'm in a meeting and I have to be able to function, then fine, have some nuts or some like baby carrots or something. But ideally, you want the low blood sugar. Why? Because that tells that makes your insulin go down. And when your insulin goes down, you make more glucose transport proteins to get sugar into your brain. So it'll prevent you from getting type 3 diabetes or dementia. So it's a good thing, actually, to have low blood sugar. I know that sounds weird, but it actually is. And the research has shown that in rats, they showed that they could increase the the glucose transport proteins in the blood-brain barrier by 10 times just from 3 days of low blood sugar. So yeah, you don't want 3 days of low blood sugar, but it should last usually minutes, 10 minutes to maybe a half an hour, but not longer than that.
All right, let's wrap up with Krish, longtime visitor, viewer of our webinars here. Said these webinars have helped him a lot over the years. And so he has a question about vitamin A. What is the ideal type of vitamin A? He said vitamin A palmitate does not help, and he's trying to get rid of blurry vision.
Okay, so natural vitamin A's are mostly carotenoids, which are beta carotene. So any vegetables, especially what would be really good is broccoli, for example, is excellent for that. Any of the cruciferous vegetables are excellent. Anything that's dark green, like kale and spinach, they have a lot of carotenoids. And of course, we talk about carrots having carotenoids. That's where they got their name. So and colored things like peppers, bell peppers have a lot of vitamin C and carotenes, and they give you vitamin A. And if you're taking a supplement, cod liver oil has a very good amount of vitamin A. I just put somebody on for vitamin A for tinnitus. Cod liver oil, it's extra virgin cod liver oil, EVCLO, EVCLO, has like 5,000 units in a tablespoon, which is a really good dose, totally natural source of vitamin A, and it comes with vitamin D and omega-3 oils, DHA and EPA. So I like that kind of thing as a food source.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I know you have patients to go see, and we appreciate you, Dr. Saunders. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Right.
God
see you
bless.
Next week.
All right. And I'll stay on a little bit longer here. Okay. So a couple of questions that I'll try to help answer here. That let's see, Greg, you had asked, so Nervala comes in, there's 30 capsules per bottle. The recommended dosage is to take it 2 times a day for the first month. But so if you're taking 2 a day, you run out after 15 days, and asked if we could change the monthly shipment for that. We used to have 60 in a bottle, but it became cost prohibitive, just to be honest. And also, like, if we had 60 and then eventually don't need that much every day, so we did lower it down. We do often run sales or discounts on Nervala, or if you use that coupon code webinar25, you could buy an extra bottle that'll help you get through that as you start off there, Greg. But and otherwise, if you have any other questions about that, you can email our support team. support@bartonpublishing.com is our email address. And hopefully that helps you there. We've had a lot of success with Nervala. I actually take that myself. I don't have diabetes, but it helps me sleep at night. I get a little restless legs, or just like can't sleep. And if I take a Nervala, like I sleep like all through the night with that plus my magnesium spray. So good stuff there. Let's see. Is it good to take insulin to bring sugar down with each meal? So it isn't good. So yeah, taking extra insulin typically is not, it just depends on your own situation, Jennifer. Dr. Saunders has talked about some people are type 1 and type 2 where they don't produce insulin, but they're also insulin resistant. And so that can only be discovered through testing. So that would get back to what he talked about today about that insulin resistance index test. So let's see, we answered about the detox. What else we have here? How many synochroma per day on phase 1? Terry asked. Good question. So Dr. Saunders typically says, 1 a day is fine. You can do 2 a day if you'd like. for maybe the first 30 days. That's up to you. So you really can't like necessarily overdose on any of these supplements because they are basically like eating foods, but you're getting those vitamin and nutrient mineral deficiencies addressed. So I would say just go with 1 a day for synochroma. If you want to do 2, and if you see an improvement in your blood sugar numbers and in your energy levels and things like that, then you can do that as well. But long term, it's really 1 per day is great. Okay, let's see. I already answered that one. Sue asked if IR blood test is the same as an insulin antibodies test. I don't know. I'm sorry. Let's see. Lars, let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Norway. I think I already talked about the Norway question. Lars, if you could email us at support@bartonpublishing.com if you have any further questions about that. We could probably get you some more information on shipping to Norway, for example. So support@bartonpublishing.com. Okay, let's see. Muscle loss. Okay, that is we've been talking about that's probably going to be a good topic for next week, actually, Daryl. Muscle loss. I'm going to put that on the list, and muscle wasting is another thing. I'm gonna make sure we haven't covered that recently, but if we haven't, I think we'll do that topic next week. So that'll be really good because that is a major problem, especially as you age. So keeping your muscle mass up is important. Just by continuing to exercise, eating protein, and avoiding carbs, all of that is going to be helpful for that. But we'll get into it with Dr. Saunders. Catherine asked about eating chia every day. I haven't heard anything negative about chia, but at the same time, Dr. Saunders talks about you can have too much of anything. So you can definitely have too much chia. I guess I would just listen to your body. And Dr. Saunders too, he's talked about this in the past where it's good to vary things up, in your diet, in your routines, like keep your body guessing in a sense, and don't just because your body adapts. And so sometimes if your body gets too comfortable, then it can start to decline. So change it up, mix it up, go do different things. And that can be whether it's your exercise or your foods or your supplements. He talks about you don't have to take your supplements every single day. Now, this isn't talking about medications. Of course, we're not going to tell anyone to stop taking their meds. That's something that you need to do with your own doctor or whatever. But with supplements, with foods, with exercise, with other routines, if you're driving to work, take a different route. There's just different things you can do to keep your body like always adapting and always improving and working on itself. There's something I've learned too, that a good way to keep your left brain and your right brain like firing together is to, if you're right-handed, doodle with your left hand, and that, do different things like that. Try brushing your teeth with your left hand. It changes things. It makes you work a little harder, and it's kind of fun as well. So that's my answer. Okay. I think we got that one. Krish, synochroma. Okay, berberine. So we've talked about berberine a few times in past webinars, and Dr. Saunders really likes berberine. He talks about how it basically does the same thing that metformin does, except it doesn't have the side effects. I have some berberine myself. Where did I put it? Right here. So I take this every once in a while. I take the berberine. I'm actually studying this because we might be coming out with our own berberine with Barton Nutrition, because we've heard so many good things about it. So yes, you can take berberine with synochroma, no problem. All right, what else? Lots of good questions today. Hopefully this is helpful for me staying on here. I'm not a doctor, but I've been around Dr. Saunders and been on a lot, over 100 of these webinars with him where I've learned, and that's why I encourage people to continue watching these webinars. Go back and watch the archives, listen to it as you're gardening or working around the house or driving, different things like that. So Alan asked about atrial flutter and pre-diabetic. I'm not going to answer that one. I don't know what that meant. Let's see, which report of Barton Publishing deals in detail about the detox procedure? So the detoxing is, we talked about that in this diabetes solution kit. I don't have the page number for you exactly, but if you download like the digital version of this on your computer, and then you do like a search on the page and just search for detox, it should come up with all the different places that we talk about that. But Dr. Saunders has also done webinars about detoxing as well, so just go back and search our archives. All right, Johanna, what happens and what does it mean if you have a low white blood cell count? That is above my pay grade. I mean, I could give you an answer, but it might be lacking, so I'm not going to talk about that today. Let's see, that one was already asked. And that one was already asked. So we are done. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for hopping on. Hope you got a lot from this, and keep doing the work. It's good stuff. I hope you celebrate your progress. Don't beat yourself up if you stumble or make a mistake. Everyone does that. We're humans. And so, but just make today better than yesterday and make tomorrow better than today. Little steps at a time. You're going to see big results over time. That's really a principle of life. And so thanks for joining us. You can check out more at bartonwebinar.com. You can see how to join our Facebook page there, which is free. You can go to our YouTube channel and find all of the other episodes that we've uploaded there. You can see supplements that are there. If you're interested in any of the supplements at Barton Nutrition, you can just enter that promo code or coupon code. It's called Webinar25, WEBINAR 25, and you'll save 25% off when you check out. And other than that, I think I'm going to get outside, get a little sunshine while I can here before the winter gets here. It's going to be not too long that fall comes, and then the snow starts flying. So I got to get some sunshine. All right. Take care, you guys. God bless. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Take care.